Hello, my name is Fred Vilbig. Start over again. Hello, this is Catholic Gathering. My name is Fred Vilbig. I am, one more time. If I knew what I was doing, it'd be dangerous. Hello, this is Catholic Gathering. My name is Fred Vilbig. Today is January 22nd, the anniversary of the decision of Roe versus Wade and the day that we pray for the unborn. And that started me reflecting on where we are now. We had Roe versus Wade overturned, but now we have multiple states who are passing constitutional amendments protecting a woman's right to terminate a pregnancy. And it seems to me that the problem that we have isn't so much with the laws per se. We're not winning the hearts of a majority of the people. And I think it's because people are so focused on the rights of women and they're ignoring what it is that they're doing. And so I wanted to reflect a little bit today on abortion and what it involves. Several years ago, I was asked by a Jewish lawyer friend of mine. He works for the probate court here in St. Louis. And he asked me if I would participate in a debate with the Missouri president of NARAL, the national, at the time it was called the National Association for the Repeal of Abortion Laws, but NARAL, and it was a large pro-abortion group. Now I think they're called Reproduction Freedom for All. They always come up with some such palatable names for what it is that they're arguing for. But anyway, I asked Doug, I said, Doug was the attorney. I asked Doug, I said, why me? And he said, well, you're reasonable. You won't get into a shouting match. You'll discuss this logically. And I said, well, okay, I'll do it. And so the debate was supposed to be about a month off. And really, I maybe this is the wrong thing to do, but I really didn't prepare that much for the debate. I only had one question. When does human life begin? And the reason that's the central question to this is that everyone, generally, although this has been a little bit clouded recently by the whole assisted suicide and euthanasia and that sort of thing. But generally, people agree that it's wrong to take a human life, to terminate a human life. And so the question is, when do you have a human life? What is it that you're dealing with here? Of course, the pro-abortion groups believe that human life does not begin at conception. But anyway, so that was the debate that was going to occur, and that was the only question that I had. Because if you say that it begins at any time other than conception, for instance, viability, that was the big argument, viability. Well, if you're going to take the position that it's viability, then the problem is that if somebody isn't viable on their own, able to live independently outside of the womb, then the question is whether or not they are humans. For instance, let's say you're on dialysis. You can't live independently out of the womb. So does that mean that you're not human? Let's say that you've got a defibrillator, that you have a heart problem. And if you don't have that defibrillator, you're going to die. Does that mean that you're not a human being? What about people in iron lungs? What about the handicapped? Most handicapped people need some assistance. In fact, I would argue that none of us are isolated. all of us require assistance from other people. And so, in a sense, none of us can live completely independently outside of the womb. In fact, there have been movies about that where, there's been some nuclear catastrophe and, everyone is wiped out except there's just one person left. They spend their time searching for other people because we are social beings. And so we can't live on our own without interaction from other people. So I don't see viability as being an argument. Now, some people have said that it's, there's one professor who's argued that, really you're not a human being until you're able to reason, and he puts that at about the age of 2. So up until the age of 2, it's all right to terminate a life. I think most people would agree that that's extreme, but that's the kind of reasoning that's there. So the fundamental question that everybody has to ask is, when does human life begin? And I started thinking about this after a funeral, of all things. So a woman that runs the school cafeteria at our local parish, she had a daughter who's about 30, and her daughter had recently given birth to a beautiful baby girl by C-section, and the C-section wasn't healing up. And so she went back into the doctor to find out what was going on, and they found cancer, and it was extensive, and they gave her only a short period of time to live. And the mother came to me in my job. I'm a lawyer, and I do estate planning, wills and trusts, that sort of thing. Anyway, the mother came to me and said, will you write a will for my daughter? And in particular, we want to make sure that we, the mother and the husband, the grandfather, who's a janitor at our parish, anyway, they wanted to they wanted to have guardianship and conservatorship over their granddaughter. And so I wrote a will for Kathy, that was her name. I wrote a will for Kathy and got that all set up. And anyway, Kathy ended up dying, and the grandparents had guardianship over the granddaughter. And just so that you're not distracted by the granddaughter story, she is soon to graduate from high school. She is a bright and beautiful young woman, wants to go to medical school, and is considering scholarship offers now, and is doing very well. So I don't want you to be distracted by, what happened to the little girl? She's fine. She was taken care of, and has a bright future ahead of her. Anyway, but back to Kathy. So Kathy died, and I went to the visitation and to the funeral. And I went up to the casket. It was an open casket. I went up to the casket to say some prayers for the repose of her soul. And anyway, I got up there and I looked at her, and the funeral director had done a great job on Kathy. She looked phenomenal. So lifelike, in fact, that I was expecting her to open her eyes and to, sit up and say, hey, what's going on here? Of course, that didn't happen because she had been embalmed. But it started me thinking about death. So immediately before death, the person's alive. And immediately after death, the person is dead. But everything at that moment of death, right after death, everything is still there. All the, the cells, the organs of the body, the nutrients, the enzymes, the chemicals, everything is still there. The DNA, everything is still there. But the person is dead. And the reason that the person is dead is because their soul has departed the body. The soul is that animating principle in each one of us that keeps us going. And the soul actually, if you think about it, the soul is what moves a person all along their life, so that, from conception, the soul drives you into development, so that you're born, you become a baby, you become a toddler, you become a child, possibly, unfortunately, you become an adolescent. I have a lot of kids. And you become a young adult, you become an adult. And then, you progress on to natural death. The soul is that animating force that pushes you through life all the way. And to me, it has to be there at the moment of conception, because here you've got a clump of cells. And they're not a cyst. They're not cancerous. They are developing on a trajectory to become an adult, a child, whatever, all along the path, so that you have a young person or a person from the moment of conception, that there is a soul that is there and is moving you along. Now, there was a discussion in the Middle Ages about, when is the fetus ensouled, and people have the pro-life people have, pro-abortion people have clamped onto that. They're clamped onto it, saying, even the church says that, we don't know when a fetus is ensouled, and so they're not human. But I think that's wrong. I think that soul is that driving force, and I think it's there from the beginning. But then there was also a discussion about whether or not the soul was a truly human soul. And Aristotle, and then Aquinas picked up on this. Aristotle said that, the soul starts off, it develops, that it starts off as a vegetative soul, kind of like a plant, and then it morphs into a sensitive soul. I believe that's a term, an animal. And then only later does it become a human soul, so that the soul develops along the way. Aquinas sort of picked up on that and said that, we don't know when the fetus is actually ensouled, but at that moment it's a human being and you can't abort it. Now, the patron saint, and I just recently found this out, it's very interesting. The patron saint of the pro-life movement is a saint by the name of Maximus the Confessor. He's a Greek doctor of the church, recognized also by the Roman church, but he is from the East. And he lived around the year 600 or so. And at the time, there's this big argument about, the nature of Jesus. Did he have one soul, two souls? Did he have only a human soul? Did he have a divine soul? And it was a big argument, very, as you'll see in a minute. It was something that was a very heated debate. And Maximus said that that Jesus had both a human and a divine soul, which is what we believe as Catholics, so that his human soul was in conformity to his divine soul. And that's how we're redeemed, is that he was fully man, fully human, truly God. Anyway, so we believe that he was truly human, that Jesus was truly human. And this even presented a problem for Aquinas, because Aquinas said that, which is kind of interesting in my mind. I know I'm a nerd. But Aquinas said that Jesus was unique, that he had a human soul from the moment of conception, because otherwise there were problems with the redemption theology. But then he's saying that there was something different about Jesus, besides the fact that he was true God and true man, but there was something different about the humanity of Jesus. And I think that should have been problematic for him. Anyway, St. Maximus said, no, that you had to have had the human soul at the moment of conception, because otherwise the redemption doesn't make sense, because then you don't have a person that is, or Jesus wouldn't have been human from the moment of conception. And so his argument was that really the soul that is in the fetus from the moment of conception is truly a human soul. It has a lot of development to do, but our bodies have a lot of development to do, and that's the soul that's moving you along on that trajectory. And it develops so that you develop reason. And even an infant is, a fetus is reasoning through, to the extent that it can, is reasoning through about movement and not necessarily, who am I and that sort of thing, but, trying to understand how its body is working. And if you see a newborn baby, they're, putting their hands in their mouth, and they're always fascinating. It's really, I find babies to be very cute. But they, put their hands in the mouth, try to understand their arms, their arms are flailing out and things. Well, they're using their reason to try to understand the space, where they are in the world, what these things do, these arms and things do, so that you're using reason, maybe in a very elementary stage, but you're using reason, I would think, from the moment of conception. And so for people to say that it's okay to abort an unborn child, I think that they need to think about, when does a child, a fetus, become human? And I think that they should, I'm not saying that they will, but they should have real problems with reasoning through on that point. Because we are human because of our soul, and our soul certainly seems to be present from the moment of conception. That's what we need to convince pro-abortion people about, that what they're talking about is a human being, a human soul. I realize that the pushback that you're going to get is that it's my body, I have my rights. Yes, but your rights end when someone else's rights begin, and the rights of a baby begin at the moment of conception. Thank you very much, and God bless.